Have you ever considered what would happen if, without warning, you simply withdrew? I'm not speaking of vanishing physically, but of an inner retreat, a quiet severing of the invisible threads that tie you to others. What would happen if, not from anger, not from bitterness, but from sheer necessity, you chose to step away and just be with yourself? Few truly grasp the weight of distance, because distance is not merely absence, it's disruption. It unsettles the fragile ecosystems of expectations that people quietly build around you. It disturbs a balance they didn't even realize existed. It's not just about losing your voice in a conversation or your hand in a task. It's about losing a reflection, a mirror they depended on without ever admitting it. When you step away, you don't just create an empty space. You expose an uncomfortable truth. You reveal what was built on your presence and what crumbles without it. The hidden impact of distance. People rarely see you as you are. They see you as a projection, a role, a comfort. You are the vessel that carries their fears without protest, the stage where they act out their needs without acknowledgement. And when you leave, you remove the stage, the vessel, the mask. They are left with themselves, raw, unfiltered, unfamiliar. And that is where the discomfort begins. Because your absence isn't just silence, it's a confrontation. How many times have you heard words like, "I can't do this without you. You mean so much to me. You're the reason I'm okay," only to realize later, those words were less about celebrating you and more about filling something inside them. When you step away, you disrupt that narrative. You interrupt their story. And what they feel is not just sadness, it's terror. The terror of facing themselves without you as the shield. The true nature of emotional dependency. You see, many human bonds are not what they appear to be. They are not woven with threads of love or respect, but knotted together by need, by dependency, by quiet fear. We are taught to think of relationships as mutual, but often they are deeply asymmetrical. One gives, the other leans. One reflects, the other gazes. When you pull away, it forces a recalibration, and that recalibration hurts, because it was never really about you. It was about what they projected onto you. It was about what you allowed them to avoid. And when you're no longer there, they aren't mourning your presence. They're mourning the security you unknowingly provided. The shattering of illusions. Here's where the story takes an even stranger turn. When you leave, people don't simply move on. They reconstruct you, not as you truly are, but as they need to remember you. Some paint you in golden hues, turning you into a symbol of purity, of loss, of what could have been. Others sharpen you into a villain, blaming you for their discomfort, their imbalance, their unraveling. Both responses are defenses. Both are stories they tell themselves to avoid facing a harder truth, that your stepping away triggered something buried deep inside them. And here's the most fascinating part. Those reactions aren't about you at all. They're about survival, emotional survival, identity survival. Because if they can shape your absence into a story, then they don't have to sit with the shapeless fear your departure left behind. The varied faces of reaction. Not everyone reacts the same way. Some will spiral into anger. Some will withdraw into sorrow. Some will pretend nothing has changed until the cracks show in the quiet moments. Your distance means something different to each person, depending on what role you played in their life. To one, you were a source of validation. To another, a silent companion against loneliness. To yet another, an anchor to reality. Your leaving reopens old wounds they thought had scarred over. Your silence awakens fears they thought were conquered. And for a rare few, your absence becomes a mirror, forcing them to confront their own reflection, for the first time in years. The irony is brutal. In your presence, they forgot their pain. In your absence, they remember it in ways they cannot ignore. The evolution of distance over time. At first, they may be angry, frustrated, confused. They'll reach out, demand answers, demand explanations you don't owe them. But as time stretches on, the feelings shift. The story evolves. What began as anger may morph into longing. What began as resentment may sink into regret. And in the quiet, when no one else is watching, they will wonder, was I ever really connected to them, or only to the way they made me feel? This is the uncomfortable magic of stepping away. You don't just disrupt the surface, you stir the deep, and the deeper the waters you touch, the longer the ripples last. The subconscious terror of losing control. Control. That's what most human relationships secretly orbit around. Control over emotions, control over narratives, control over comfort. When you step away without warning, you steal a piece of that control. You reveal how fragile their inner world truly is. You show them the scaffolding they thought was steel was only paper, painted silver. And losing that illusion doesn't just sting, it terrifies. Because if they could depend so heavily on you without realizing it, what else are they depending on without knowing? It's a question most aren't ready to answer. And so, they rewrite, they blame, they pretend, because pretending feels safer than facing the truth, that the strongest chains are often the ones we never see. The mirror you leave behind. When you withdraw, you don't just leave people behind, you leave mirrors behind. Mirrors that reflect uncomfortable truths. How much of their happiness depended on you. How little of their identity was built independently. How much they avoided facing in themselves because you were always there to absorb the weight. Your absence becomes a trial, a pressure point. It reveals whether the bond was built on truth or just on silent desperation. And here's the final mystery. It's not the loneliness that breaks people. It's the realization that they were never truly known, even by themselves. The hidden gift of walking away. Stepping away, though painful, is not an act of cruelty. It's an act of radical honesty. It's saying, I will no longer be the mirror you refuse to look into. I will no longer carry the weight you won't name. I will no longer be the placeholder for your healing. And in doing so, you offer them a gift, even if they don't recognize it. The gift of facing themselves. The gift of growth, however painful. The gift of honesty. Not everyone will accept that gift. Some will resent you for it. Some will twist it into bitterness. But a few, a rare few, will take it. They will sit in the wreckage of what was and slowly, painfully, begin to build something real from the ruins. So the next time you wonder if stepping away makes you selfish, remember this. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone feel the weight of their own emptiness. Because only in emptiness can we begin to understand what truly needs to be filled. And only in silence can we hear the voice we've been drowning out all along.